Hi, and welcome to TEKS Deconstruction. I'm John Reed from the Mathematics Department. We are going to be going over some great 5 steps to be taken when you're deconstructing TEKS in an effort to make some really well-aligned and well-sequenced learning objectives in your classroom. Thank you for being here today, and we'll get started. For us in mathematics, or us in 4th ISD, we're really focused on a written and tested curriculum and instructional planning and preparation, and all of that being driven towards the instructional delivery. We want to be simple, clear, concrete, data-driven, focus-driven, lots of things. So for us today, some of our learning goals are going to be to collaborate and use guiding questions to improve lesson planning and preparation, and then to make connections between instructional planning processes and best practices for instructional delivery. And additionally, though not listed here, one of my goals for you is to understand well specifically what a TEKS deconstruction is, the know and show charts, and then how to use those tools to make some really well-aligned learning objectives, activities, sequenced learning objectives and activities in your classroom. So for me, I identify TEKS deconstruction with 5 key steps, and those all are aligned to lesson alignment, right? So the first of 5 is identifying high leverage teaching standards connected to the student expectations. 2 is to break down those standards into what the students need to know and be able to do, the know and show chart. 3, to look at the assessment items or DOLs that follow that TEK or TEKS to refine what students need to know and show, and then write possible learning objectives that cover all aspects of that TEK or those TEKs, and then to sequence those learning objectives in a really well trajectory kind of format that scaffolds nicely into what the students need to master. So really quickly, number one, identifying high leverage standards. Well, these can be your readiness standards if you want. They can be TEKS from the uh, Lead Forward website, their frequency distribution charts, which TEKS were taught most often, highest frequency. They can be from your daily assessments, formative or summative. They can be from benchmarks. Wherever you're pulling your data from, understanding which TEKS are the ones you need to focus in on most, we're going to call those our high leverage TEKS. And then number two, breaking down the standards into what they need to know and show. Many times we look at a TEK and it says be able to, so for 5th grade, 5-3K, I think it is, add and subtract positive rational numbers fluently. Okay, well, that's a lot right there. And so teachers in class, yeah, I taught adding, subtracting ration, positive rational numbers. Well, for 5th grade, that can be decimals, fractions, whole numbers, adding, subtracting. It can be one, two, three, four numbers. It can be any way, unknowns, this, that. It can be so many ways. And with those also, it can be conversions and things like that. So when we're looking at breaking down those TEKs, it's not just what that TEK says, it's all the components that build into that TEK, that scaffold in and up into that TEK. And so for in 5th grade, it's everything they should have learned and all the key components from fourth, third, second, and first. If you're familiar with vertical alignment and that TEKS gateway chart, the TEKS vertical alignment chart looks just like this, and there is a link and a copy of it in the classroom. If we scroll down, all the components of that know and show chart are everything they should have been able to do beforehand. So in 3rd grade, if they are comparing and ordering whole numbers up to 100,000 and represent comparisons using the symbols greater than, less than, or equal to, well, then they need to be able to compare up to 1200 using those symbols. They need to have place values. They need to have open number lines. Symbols represent two numbers, up to 20 written numerals. And not only that, they need to understand place value 120, 120, 1200, 100,000, and all those pieces to it. Not just understanding those, but also comparing them with numbers, comparing them with the pictures, comparing them with the various representations. All those play into the know and show chart right there for them. So then when we talk about breaking it down in the know and show chart, we need to be explicit and creative in all the ways to know and show that TEK based on our understanding. From there, we go to step number 3, and that's looking at those assessment items and DOLs to refine what they need to know and need to show. We think many times in our head we've got it all, and we are. We're experts at this. We're great. But we need to be looking at the end result, the end in mind, the assessment pieces for our kids, because the way we teach in class may cover one or two ways, but we need to prepare our students for various ways they're going to find that information. not only find that information, but see that information. And so one of the great ways for us, you can go to DOLs and look at those in the curriculum. You can go to the assessment pieces maybe you and your campus make for grade level assessments, or end of unit assessments. For us, and what I use a lot is the TEKS lead forward. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. The release star questions that they have right there. And again, this link is going to be in the classroom as well. So from the Lead Forward website, we go to resources. And again, this is just a quick overview. Resources. And then we go to the released item analysis tool. And again, this is only grades 3, 4, and 5. So second grade teachers, you'll be using those DOLs and other items. So in the content area, or math, or literacy, anything you'd like. Grade level, let's go ahead and go to third grade. Next. TEKS clusters or student expectations are easy for me to look at. And then just for us right now, so again, let's try this math and go to third grade next. And then let's go ahead and just take T clusters next. And we're going to check all areas. It's fine. Select all TEKS, all years. We want to see all the various representations of those assessment items. So if we look at some of the assessment items, so this is assessment item 32A. And so we see it's going from expanded to standard. We see that it's describing with words. We see that it's expanded notation a bit, standard form. And then we see some more just written out the words, understanding which ones it is. So these are all the various ways that TEK has been assessed. And so when we go back to our know and show chart, we need to make sure we revise it with additional information pieces from this. Sum of can be expressed as this and this and this. That is what I mean by going back and revising that know and show chart. So after we look at the three, looking at assessment items and refine that know and show chart, we're going to post all the things we think could be possible learning objectives. Students will be able to do this and this and this, and we're going to put the know and show charts together. Know how to do this by showing this way, by showing that way, by showing that way. Know how to do this by showing this way, by showing this way, by showing that way. Right? All the possible objectives we can think of, and this is the creative part of the teaching for the lesson planning part for TEKS Deconstruction. All the possible ways you think it could be seen and shown, you're going to write those. And then we're going to sequence them, number 5, sequence them in the order we think our kids are going to grasp. After you then sequence them from easiest to hardest or from the low level to high level, you're going to then go through and see which ones you don't need to use because your kids have already mastered it. Going from step 3 to 4, it's going to be a huge task for you because it's going to look like there is so much your kids have got to do, which is true. But then we go to 5 and sequence those objectives, and then the invisible step 6, we cross off the ones our kids can already do. We start to delineate and check off things we don't need to focus on. And that's how we can get really focused and intentional with what we actually have to be doing in class. After you make those sequence learning objectives, then you can be using those for daily instruction, whole group, small group, independent activities, and such. And that's what I really like about TEKS Deconstruction. So we're going to go through and actually go through the process of doing it, okay? So again, identify the TEKS, break down the standards, know and show, then look at assessment items, then write possible objectives, and then sequence them. And again, that invisible step 6 is then go through and cross out what they've already got and what you need to focus on. So the know and show chart, the way we use it, the know is listing the knowledge your kids are expected to review or learn about those items. It's everything your kids need to know. They need to know how to use a ruler. They need to know how to use a place value chart. They need to know how to use um, they need to know how to use an expander or to expand numbers. And the show is the way they're going to do it. They're going to do it this way. They're going to do it that way. They're going to use the actual ruler to do measure. They're going to use a place value expander to write expanded notation or whatever it is. All the different ways, the know and show, and that's the creative part of this. So once you do the know and show part, well, then you're going to fill out what you think it is. So for fourth grade, one of the standards is to solve problems that deal with measurement of length, intervals of time, liquid volume, mass, and money using addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division as appropriate. So a huge TEK, right? So we can start thinking right off the bat, step number two, make a know and show chart. Well, they need to know how to solve problems, measurements, they need to know intervals of time, liquid volume, mass, money, and you may yourself, being a fourth grade teacher or second or third grade teacher, add more to that right now. And so the skills are going to show that. They're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Step three then tells us to go look at those assessment items. So if we go and look at the assessment items, the DOLs and released items like that, we're going to put some more information right there. What specific skills do they need to know? What other ways will that skill be shown? What other way will that knowledge piece be shown? So once you look at the assessment items, the DOLs or the TEKS STAR test released items, we're going to go back to that planning tool. So here are some questions from the actual release STAR test for that TEK in fourth grade. We can see that they're converting quarts and gallons, and they're adding them together. And again, this is just kind of all abstract. There are no pictures or anything right there. Also, they're going from two pictures of pencils going backwards. They're going to go which one's closest measurement right there. And so this one right here not only means they understand a comparison of it, but they also need to be able to use a ruler, but not just the ruler, the centimeter portion of the ruler. So a lot of skills going into this right here, same as this one right there. So after we look at the released items, the DOLs, and the assessment pieces, we then go back to our table and we write some more know and show pieces. Here are two more assessment items. Same TEK, remember. Now we're going to be using a table to then talk about time. Elapsed time, I think it is also. And then here we go, some money. And this involves decimals, adding up decimals and subtraction of decimals. So all the same TEK, but a variety of ways to actually use it and be seen. So when we're instructing our class, we need to make sure we're hitting as many, if not all, those ways we can think of possibly that this TEK is going to be shown. So after we look at those released test items, we then go back again to the know and show chart and we write all those pieces we can be creative about. From there, we then start making some possible objectives. And this is where you're going to be really creative and as creative as you can be. So again, each objective must be specific and student friendly. So after we start filling out that table, and here's an example, we start to see we have a lot of objectives that could be used. A student will be able to use a ruler to measure length, convert metric units of length, solve problems of length, convert this, convert that, solve, 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 lots of different ways and lots of different portions that our kids need to be working on. And remember, after we write those objectives, we're then going to sequence them. So maybe using a ruler to measure length is more important than solving problems over here or converting metric units over there. You're going to put these in order of your best fit of understanding, I guess, the trajectory of what your kids are going to be learning in class. So after you organize these, you can then go through and start crossing off things that your kids might already know. Hopefully by the fourth grade, your kids can already use a ruler to measure length. Maybe you just need to refine, making sure they understand which portion or which side of the ruler they need to measure. Maybe even appropriateness. So if we're measuring a room, we wouldn't use centimeters. We might use feet, we might use yards. But helping your kids understand the reasonableness going forward. If you look at these right here, your kids have solved already some of them, so you can start crossing off what they don't need to know. And then that helps you be really specific in your lesson objective and really specific in the activities you plan in your class. One of the pitfalls of lesson planning that we get into often, me too included, is that we make our lesson objectives off of a worksheet or off of a TE or the resource we have in class. The page says this. Well, we're going to work on our lesson based off of what this page shows us. Well, if we're looking into what students really, really need, we're going to be making lesson objectives outside of those resources. The resources there to help supplement what we're teaching. We're not going to be using that as the starting point of what we're doing in our classroom. No, we're going to be using these objectives. What specifically do we want our kids to be able to do? Make that objective and then find resources and activities to supplement that specific learning target. Let's make sure our teaching is specific and the resources we are adding to it. We're not trying to match the resource, but have the resource match what we want to be doing in our classroom. So we're ending the near this first 15-minute activity. The next activity is going to be you actually doing something, I think, with no one shows. But as always, I'm here to help and support you. I'm your Region 1 coordinator, John.Reed at FWSD. We have our resource folders for you, bit.ly, LM Resources, and then we have our Google website, which is FWISD Math. be looking and using those to better and strengthen your instruction. And as always, reach out to me if you need support. Thank you.